Welcome. This is Brett Johnson with OneMedRadio in New York. Today I'm with Vicki Anastasi, the Senior Vice President of Aptiv Solutions. They are a global provider of clinical trials and consulting. Our topic today is innovative approaches to the design of trials and really techniques to bring new medical devices to market. Thanks for joining us today, Vicki.
Thank you, Brett. It's nice to be here.
Okay, so perhaps you can talk first about what do you see as some of the big trends in medical device design and development of trials today?
Sure. I think what we're seeing is two trends that have come out in the last few years. One is the adaptive design of clinical trials. It's an innovative trial design. It's been commonly accepted in the pharmaceutical world for years, and now we're seeing it translate into device. In the last 10 years or so, the FDA has approved over 100 device trial designs that are adaptive, and the same is true in Europe. The second factor would be risk-based monitoring, which the FDA issued a guidance document on this year, which is a novel approach to clinical trial monitoring. It enables the sponsor to look at sites across the board and use statistical validation to determine which sites need the most monitoring and which ones need the less. It's a time and cost savings for the sponsors, and it allows the new products to enter the market more quickly.
Terrific. So can we drill down a little bit more on adaptive trials and exactly what is an adaptive trial?
An adaptive trial is a trial design. It's based on algorithms and statistics that allow you to look at your patient populations, your sample size, and perhaps your cohorts, and you pre-plan interim analysis that allow you to take a look at data at various points throughout the study. And you, at that time, with independent statistical review, you can make decisions about where the study should go from there. A great example is you could look at a study with an interim analysis, and you could say, we've proven efficacy, and we're going to move forward with our submission. Or we've proven futility with one cohort, and we're not going to enroll in that cohort anymore. The important thing to remember is that all of these interim analyses and these stops and starts and adjustments are pre-planned with the regulatory bodies such as the FDA, so the data, the interim analysis data is acceptable to the regulatory authorities.
I see. And so historically, was it a risk that you would launch ahead with a design and then you'd have some glitches and then you'd have to go back and start all over again and essentially have the design or have the trial essentially wasted? Is that how what was the situation before adaptive approach?
So in a traditional clinical trial design, you plan a study. It's very sequential. You move along the study. You may have some data analysis being done, but you don't have the ability to adapt your study. You don't have the ability to re-estimate your sample size needed and add more power to a certain population, or to look at the data and end early, either for efficacy or futility. So it's like adaptive design is like having an insurance policy around your clinical study. It allows you to shorten the study, to lengthen the study, to drop populations, to add additional sample size in order to come to a decision from that study. Traditionally, you could complete a study, look at the data, and realize that you need more data, or to realize that the data is not effective and the study design did not prove that your product could enter the market. So we like to say that this is an insurance policy around your study design, and even in the case where you may stop early for futility, you're saving time and money on development, and you're also saving patients from having a treatment that may not prove to be effective.
Sounds like it makes great sense. How long has this adaptive approach been in development, and what percentage of trials do you think are now taking this approach?
Well, the CDRH of the FDA has been looking at this for years. So if you look at even a 7-year period from 2005 to 2012, the CDRH approved more than 120 products that had trials conducted under an adaptive design. Since then, hundreds more studies have been put forth to the FDA and agreed upon. So the FDA for devices is very much moving in this direction. They've encouraged it in some indications that we've been involved in, and the percentages are increasing daily. The thing about any type of trial design is that the definition of adaptive is changes throughout the industry. But when we look at it, we can see a growing trend to using this novel approach of creating value-added data in your study.
Does it take longer to develop the adaptive approach up front, or is it about the same amount of time that it takes to kind of develop a traditional trial approach?
There should be no difference in the time it takes to design an adaptive trial. If you use experts that have the software and the statistical capability, then there's no difference in designing and developing and initiating a study. The important thing about an adaptive design is you need to use the people who have the expertise to design it so that it's statistically valid, and then to execute it, because as you can imagine, if you have a clinical trial that has a series of interim analyses, and at that point the trial could change the way it's being executed, then the people who are conducting the study need to be experts in execution of adaptive designs.
Interesting. Can we move on to you mentioned risk-based monitoring. What is? Can you tell us about that?
Certainly. So in a traditional study, many times you look at the sites and you have a site monitoring plan, and it's fairly static. You will have 10 sites with 10 visits spread out over 10 months. That would be a simple analysis. And you just, on a schedule, you just go and monitor the sites and look at the data and confirm. With a risk-based monitoring plan, you would take your 10 sites and you would look at the history on the sites, you would look at the products that you're studying, and you do a statistical verification plan of the risk at each of those sites, and you create a more fluid plan where you have high-risk sites, moderate-risk sites, and low-risk sites. And you basically have a pool of monitoring visits, and you go and monitor as needed. So it again, is a technology very similar to adaptive that we just spoke about, where you have to have the statistical analysis, and you have to have a data management system that allows you to constantly look at accurate, up-to-date data so that you can be evaluating the risk at each site and make a determination of when the monitoring visits should occur. What you normally see is that the amount of visits goes down, that it's more effective because you're not just on a schedule, but you're monitoring when the data flags you that something needs to be checked at the site so that the study is more efficient. The costs usually go down for monitoring, and the time associated with monitoring also goes down because it's a data management-driven monitoring plan.
Interesting. Sounds like there's really are a lot of opportunities to manage the whole process of clinical trials through these two through technology, really. Can we shift gears and talk a little bit about your advice to investors or entrepreneurs in terms of the planning and mapping out, looking at a deal or venture, a new project, and how they can better, I guess, assess, understand, the likelihood of a trial working?
Certainly. I think that we all realize that there's a demand to provide better health care at lower costs, and that's a driving force in today's product development. And that's critical to attracting investment in these emerging medical device companies, whether they are small companies or large, powerful medical device companies that have to determine what's next in their pipeline. What we see by this technology of adaptive design and risk-based monitoring, that it allows new medical device innovations to come on the market faster and potentially reduce healthcare costs. So developing a well-aligned and coordinated product development strategy that includes design, patients, user needs, the clinical research, regulatory, and of course reimbursement is what we believe investors are looking at today, and also large medical device companies, because they want to fully maximize their return on investment.
Interesting. As an investor, what's the first question that you would be looking for as in terms of what would you want to know in terms from the company bringing a new device to market? What would be sort of the first question you'd ask around the issue of their clinical trial?
When you're looking at a novel technology that once it enters the market is going to change the way a patient population is treated or change the way people are being diagnosed, I think what you have to look for is, have you looked at building an insurance policy around your clinical trial? Have you looked at the most cost-effective mechanisms for conducting your study? And are you using all the technology that's available to you as a emerging medical device company? And if, as an investor, or I think the investment company should be asking these questions. If a company comes to them with a traditional plan, a traditional trial design, a very sequential trial design, and a standard model of technology or execution, I think the provocative question would be, have you looked at adaptive design? Have you looked at the technologies available that could be time and cost savings? Because with every investment, there's a cap to the investment. There's a time factor of entering the market and gaining market share. And as an investor, those are the questions I would be asking. And also, even in a large company, when they're looking at their portfolio and which products can enter the market and make a difference, I would be asking the same questions. How can we get this product on the market with the claims we need to in a more efficient manner?
Interesting. Well, that's excellent advice. Thank you. So that's Vicki Anastasi, who is a Senior VP at Aptiv Solutions. She will actually be on a panel at the 7th Annual OneMed Forum in San Francisco, January 14th, addressing this very important topic of bringing medical devices to market and how you can do it more intelligently and more economically. Thanks for joining us today, Vicki.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.